But the basic line is that the electrical cables and accessories which were used in the wiring should meet the basic standard requirements.
And yesterday we learned about those basic standard requirements. But still, today, there are people who are building who will go to the market today to buy cables. And they are listening to us right now and wondering, okay, so which ones are good, which ones are not good? Is it just the Ghanaian ones? Or when I go, what do I look out for? How does a person know that the cable that their electrician has bought and come to dump in their, on their construction site is actually safe?
Thank you once again. The ordinary customer may not be able to easily identify which cables are good on the market. So what Ghana Standards Authority has been doing over the years is that on our website, cables that we have tested, which have passed our tests, have been listed there. Nonetheless, when you get to the market, cables should be branded. Buy a cable that has been branded. Buy a cable from a traceable source. Somebody is selling on a wooden table. You buy from him, you go back because you have an issue, you cannot locate him. So buy from a source that you can easily trace. When you are going to buy a cable, cables are manufactured to standards. For example, yesterday it was mentioned that we have the wiring code GS1009. That is a standard. A standard should have a figure and have letters. So for wiring cables, we have a standard like GS-IEC 60227. This information should be part of the labeling or the marking requirement. Labeling means that the packaging of the product should have this information on it, or on the insulation, the skin of the product, we should have the marking of this number to say that this cable was manufactured to this standard. Right. The length of the cable must be indicated. Generally, cables, a coil of cable should be about 100 yards, which we can convert into a 91.4 meters.
Okay. 100 yards, yes, or 91.4 meters.
Yes. So when you go to the market and you find a cable with a label on it and the length is 80 yards, 70 yards, what that basically means is that if you needed 2 of the 100 yards cable for your wiring, and you decided to go and buy the 80 yards cable, you end up buying about 4 or 5 of that. Frankly, the 80 yards cable should not cost more than 100 yards cable. Right. So you may be deceived by thinking that the cost of this is less than the cost of the 100 yards, but you end up buying more of this. Maybe another thing you have to look at is this. Pure conductor, pure copper conductor should not be attracted to magnets. Okay. I think our listeners should take this very, very seriously. When you are going out to the market to buy an electrical cable, ask the seller to peel one end, just a little small end of the insulation, and get a magnet close to the copper. The magnet should not attract the copper. As soon as there is an attraction, it tells you there are impurities, or the copper is not a pure copper.
There are other
chemicals or other metals, and that will raise the heat level of the product when electricity passes through it. And when this is sustained, it can melt the insulation or the protection around it. And then if that also is sustained, then there is fire.
Wow.
So these are some basic things we can look out for. And then I think finally we can talk about pricing. A 1.5 mm cable of a dealer A, the price should not be that different from a dealer B. So when you're going to buy cable from the market, please compare prices. Where you find out that the same size of cable, the price variation is just too high, then it calls for a serious scrutiny. Otherwise, you end up burning your facility.
This is very useful information. I'm so glad you've shared this with us. So I've been making some notes. First of all, you said look out for cable that has been branded. That's important. Then you should buy from a traceable source. Then you talked about the standard marking, which should be on the cable to tell you that it has been tested and it met this standard. Then you talked about the length, which is something really useful for consumers. Okay, normally it ought to be about 100 yards. If somebody is selling you a shorter reel of cable, you have to consider what it means for the work you are going to do. You might spend less money on it but end up needing two of them instead of just the one. Then you talked about the component, the copper. It should be pure copper. So if you bring a magnet to it and the magnet attracts it, then that means it's not pure copper. There are other metals in there which are attracting the magnet. And then finally, you talked about huge price disparity. If the difference is too much, and this is just far too cheap compared to some other one, you should ask further questions about it. This is useful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.